Okay.
And basically, the one guy who's the lyricist writes a song that's like really captivating lyrically, but the melody is just garbage. And Dino Spumoni writes a song that's like super catchy, but it's about like onions or something. Like it isn't about anything relevant. And it's one of those things where it's like you really see where two people fit together creatively. And it's always interesting when people that are like Lennon and McCartney in this example that write together eventually kind of split up and you see what each person did on their own.
You are listening to Tape Spaghetti, the podcast about the twisted and tangled innards of the music industry. Some of this content may not be for all listeners or viewers, so if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. We'll just catch you on the next one. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go. Welcome back, dear listener, to another episode of Tape Spaghetti. I am Scott Marquardt. This is Blake Weiland, and what you have not been able to see or hear at home is that we have been raging against our proverbial machines. Actually, they're quite literal machines due to the AWS outage that has been plaguing the internet today, which is in your past. Now that you're hearing this, though probably only your past by like a day. So yes. We are using Zoom and GarageBand and all sorts of other digital equivalents of reading by candlelight to be able to approximate our usual setup in an older technological world.
Yeah, this is a throwback to some vintage Tone Mob episodes. I used to record this. I've been recording that show for about 10 years. So I've used just about every remote recording application that exists. And normally the one we use is quite good, and it makes my editing life very easy, relatively speaking. And this is going to be a throwback to when editing was a lot harder and more annoying. But hey, we can still do it. The thing is, we needed to bring the show to the people, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where we're like, I guess we can't podcast. And it's like, wait a second, what would we have done 8 years ago if we had to do this? It's like when you're like, well, I don't have any phone service, so I can't drive to that place. I just can't know. I can't have the directions, so I can't. I'm stuck here.
It's impossible.
Like, well, what would you have done?
Yeah, exactly. You would have busted out the Thomas guide and you would have gotten there. That's what you would have done.
It would have taken longer and you would have made a few enormous mistakes along the way.
But you would have made it happen. Yep. And that's the point. And that's what we're doing today. Today, we are navigating via a large book while our dad screams.
That is correct. And Blake and I are in the rear seat punching each other.
That's right. That's right. No, I said turn left on Oneida. No, you said Victoria. No, I said Oneida.
Oneida's where I used to live.
But I don't
know if you just pulled that out of your butt, but
I did. Yeah, I did.
I lived on Oneida Ave. Weirdly, not related to this, but like, did you ever grow up with Oneida silver, like silverware? It's a very popular type of silverware.
Yeah, that's probably where I got the name, to be honest. I'm not sure where I pulled that from, but I bet it's from a spoon.
Yeah, well, the thing is, those spoons were made by a sex cult. They were. I had Oneida silverware growing up. It was, I can't remember the whole story, and I've not prepared this for this episode like our normal stories. But as I recall, there was an Oneida sex cult of some variety, and they made money for themselves by making the silverware.
Okay, that's an interesting, I'm not sure. Maybe, actually, I don't want to know how you got from one thing to another. So I'll just leave it at that. I'll let you, dear listener, do your own research so I don't have to.
And it might have been like a sex cult in an abstinence culty way, or maybe it was like, I mean, all cults are like abstinence for some and not for others.
Rules for thee, not for me.
Yes, like most cults are like, all right, I have decreed that all of the men in my cult will henceforward be abstinent. And they're like, okay, yes, we will purify our souls. Like, what about our wives? They're like, no, not them.
No. See, they have a different set of rules, and that's so right. Do I.
Yep.
As your great leader.
100% of times it goes that way. Every cult.
Yes.
I don't think it starts that way, but after a little while, you start to think, huh.
And then in every story, there's always that one guy who's like, wait a minute. And that's like the breaking point for him. He's like, hold on a second. That doesn't seem to make any sense.
It's never right away. I've watched a lot of documentaries about cults, and that guy, like, you're right that it's that guy, but he's always like 2 years into that process by this point that he's like, wait a second, what's in this for me?
I don't seem to be getting anything that I was promised at all.
No.
I'm only getting, I just in here making spoons.
Yeah, I work hard labor in the fields or making spoons. And my wife's with, Dr. Weirdo over there.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this isn't making a lot of sense.
Yeah. The Rajneeshis were a big thing here. Not when I was aware. Yeah. But it's funny because like we watched the documentary and a lot of people I know actually got their tents because once they moved out, they had all these super nice canvas tents that ended up in surplus stores. Like, so people would like end up with these for like hunting or camping or whatever, like very heavy duty, nice, robust canvas tents that were from the Rajneeshpuram like group. And,
no kidding.
Yeah. So it's a thing I was aware of for a long time, though I didn't understand when people were talking about it when I was a kid. I was confused, but we were on a trip in the area here a few years ago and my wife was like, I want to go to Antelope and see antelope. And I said, the thing is, there is nothing in Antelope. That's why they went there. There's like 2 buildings. That's all it is. Antelope, Oregon is like nothing. But once they left, they took everything with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, dear listener, if you don't know much about Rajneeshpuram, may I recommend to you the Netflix documentary Wild Wild Country.
Yep.
It's amazing. And actually, the less you know about what happened there, the better, in my opinion. Like, I didn't know much. And the ride that documentary took me on,
Mm-hmm.
I was on everybody's side at like a different point watching that. They did a really good job of just creating that narrative.
Mm-hmm. And then at some point you go, yeah, that was weird. That was real weird. Yeah. I wonder if
just like if you were in the cult, eventually you're like, that was strange.
That was strange. You
what
know,
an odd time.
Actually, no. Whoop, I almost did a major spoiler. Zip. Done with
Don't
that
spoil
conversation.
nothing.
Yep.
Well,
not spoiling it.
That's an excellent segue in that it's not a segue at all into the topic of our podcast today, which is the music, the sonic world, if you will, of 007 James Bond. So for me, this is like in my head ever since we were talking about our episode about Chris Blackwell a few episodes back. And I'm a big 007 guy and obviously fan of Jamaica and Jamaican music and all this. So I was kind of rattling around in there a little bit. And I wanted to double dip into the world of Ian Fleming a few episodes later and talk about the music of James Bond, because there's a lot of cool stuff.
I think this is a really great topic to get into because from my perspective, I would say I'm probably like a mid-level James Bond fan. I've got friends like you and then one of my other good buddies, Joshua. He is just a major James Bond nerd and knows all kinds of stuff about it and loves those movies as much as, maybe you might picture a Star Wars nerd loving Star Wars, right? I'm not quite to that level, but I do really enjoy Bond films. And the music, until I got older, was kind of a secondary thing. But as I got older and got more into music, I realized how much that is part of the culture of James Bond. And like being a fan of James Bond, like the songs are so, like the main themes for each movie are so important. So I'm like super jazzed up to kind of dive into this.
And I think it's unique. I mean, there's probably another movie that has done a similar thing, but what became the tradition of having a different artist do every intro theme for James Bond movies has become such a cool thing. There are 27 different James Bond movies right now, and there's no signs that they're not going to continue to make more in the future. So there's a lot of content out there. And preface, just for everyone, because it would be a little bit lame to just like go through every single of the 27 songs. I started doing it kind of like that, and I was like, oh, this is gonna suck. I'm just gonna be like, and then they did this one, and that was made by this guy, and then next they did this one. So instead, I'm gonna kind of tell the story of it chronologically with a bit of a selection of them that I think kind of do it. We won't talk about every single one.
Yes, and I imagine we'll get into our own personal favorites and so on and so forth.
Heck yeah.
I'm excited. Well,
all right,
let's dive into your first bit.
Well, let's have some fun. Cool. So the very first one to start off, sometimes I start with like a moment or all that, and I don't really have one for this because we're just kind of ripping through the history of it.
Sure.
But the very first Bond song from Dr. No, which is actually my favorite James Bond. I'm between that and You Only Live Twice, personally.
Okay.
But that is what most people just think of as the James Bond song.
Yeah. which is amazing. That song is so good.
It's so good. And it's so good that they just kept using that. Like there are other songs, but that one never really goes away because it's so awesome. But it actually wasn't even written for James Bond.
What? No way.
Yeah. Yeah. So the unmistakable like James Bond sort of theme was written by Monty Norman and arranged famously by John Barry for Dr. No. Monty Norman had written it some years beforehand. There was this unused like stage musical song for this musical titled Good Sign, Bad Sign. And Monty had constructed this song, what we know as the James Bond song, for that. And he got pulled in. There's a whole story about like just his experience of this, but he met a guy named Broccoli, and he pulled him towards Jamaica.
A guy named Broccoli?
Yeah. I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but he pulled him on a plane to Jamaica when they were filming Dr. No, and was like, hey, we're going to need music for this movie that we're putting together. And so Monty was kind of thinking about it, and he realized that he had this song and pitched it, and they liked it basically. But the original kind of takes on it were all like a little bit too stiff. Like the original version of that song was not what you're thinking. It has like the core melodies and stuff, but it was kind of a stiff orchestral thing. It wasn't quite working. And James Bond, I mean, this is 1962. This is like the Mustang. Like this is speaking to like the young sort of proto baby boomer America that is emerging. So like it being this super stiff, schmaltzy orchestral thing is not really what they're looking for. Exactly.
Right.
So they bring in this guy, John Barry, who is a super important figure and has been involved in like all this stuff, certainly through the 60s and 70s, to arrange the song. He doesn't like write the song itself, but he arranges it. And he's the guy that brings in all the brass and the jazz swing, and famously the iconic surf guitar riff, which is played by a session musician named Vic Flick, which has some it rhymes is what I was trying to say here. And Vic
I feel like I've heard of this name in other contexts before.
He is a famous session guy, but he plays it. See, finally, there's going to be a little bit of guitar gear stuff for you, Blake. Just a snippet of it. He plays it on his 1939 Clifford SX Paragon Deluxe, which is like a big hollow body jazz box through a Fender Vibrolux amp. So he dials in that reverb and assumably the vibrato on the amp. I don't know if he's using the amp vibrato, but kind of sounds like he is. And comes up with that thing.
I mean, that's like the most important part. Not just because I'm a big guitar nerd, but that's the part. I mean, as soon as you said that, I was like, like we all think of that part. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's such a unique thing about it. And it's one of those things where it's like when you hear surf guitar, you're like, yeah, spy movie, right? Like that's the spy movie sound. But only because of this, only because surf guitar was a cool thing at the time. They were trying to find an arrangement to this cool track that made it feel young and applicable to the kids of the day. And so that's where they landed at. And that just probably for the next like 5 centuries will be the sound of like espionage movies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody at some point learns, I don't even remember what the actual chord is, but the James Bond chord.
We're getting into that. But right. It's also worth noting like the Mission Impossible soundtrack, which is also cool, borrows like pretty heavily on this vibe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I mean that's a lot later.
Dun, 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 those horns, the big woo, like of course, yeah.
Now I know why you want to hurt me or hate me.
I actually, unironically, love the Limp Bizkit version.
The Limp Bizkit version, me too.
Yes. Because that's what all the world is after saying late.
Yeah,
that's proof that like you write a good riff. It doesn't matter what the instrument is. You write a good riff, and it just translates across the board.
It always works. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. This is not about the Mission Impossible song, but it's related. But Vic Flick, who records this, who's like super instrumental in it, he earns like about 15 British pounds for the session, which is more in 1962, but not a lot considering that like that became, considering what an iconic riff that became. If he got like, a penny every time that was played, he would be a gazillionaire.
Yes. $15 or 15 pounds. What's that going to be like? $60 or something, probably in today's money, something like that.
I would think more. I think we're about 10x.
Okay.
From the early 60s.
So not roughly. A bad day's pay, but certainly
£150, which, would be 200 something bucks in dollars. But yeah, just a day rate. He's not getting anything on it. And to what your earlier point, Vic doesn't just introduce that incredible line, which was, he didn't write it, but he did play it. He also is instrumental, quite literally, in the Bond chord. This comes from the same sessions, an E minor major 9 voicing that is that sound. I can't sing it because my voice I can't throat sing and I can only make one note at a time. And that like failure of resolve is what gives it that sound. But it's that sound in the Bond movies whenever something happens and it's like, bah!
Yep. I love that sound.
Do you have a better way of describing it than I do? Because I don't.
No, it is. I think everybody knows it. When you hear the James Bond chord, you will know exactly. You can Google that chord shape and listen to various people play it. You will hear exactly what we're talking about.
Yes, it sounds like that. I've seen that. It
sounds like Spies.
On TikTok.
Is what it sounds like.
And I don't know if I don't think they've used that for the last couple dozen Bond movies.
I don't know. I feel like there's a moment because my personal favorite Bond film is Skyfall, and I feel like they did a lot of throwing back in that, and in my brain there was a moment or two where they incorporated that, but I could be making that up.
That would make sense. Yeah. So anyway, this becomes the Bond theme and is used forevermore throughout all of the Bond things. And there's a little bit of there's a little controversy as to who owns what, because it's a Monty Norman composition. John Barry was super involved in what it ended up sounding like. It's one of those circumstances where it's like you wrote the song, but the song itself wouldn't have been the song. It needed both. Yep. And there were some. Monty Norman was able to maintain the ownership, but there were some lawsuits. It was a bit of a mess for many years as to who really owned what.
Yeah.
And that's always tough. I mean, in a lot of ways, the legal system protects, specific rhythms and specific melodies in the way that it's written out on a page more so than it does or really respects the vibe or arrangement of something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder if that's because it's
nearsighted sometimes.
A little hard to pin down in legal terms. I don't know why that would be, but
until Marvin Gaye's heirs sued Robin Thicke, but that's a whole other episode.
That's probably its own episode.
It will be. It will be at some point. So moving on from the original theme, now we're going to be talking more about the what you think of when you think of Bond songs.
Okay, here we go.
So I'm actually going to skip over From Russia with Love, though that's a decent one, but there's nothing, it's not really kind of defining it. But that does start to bring in there being vocalists and things and kind of bringing that in and it not being it being kind of its own vibe rather than being just the calypso sort of vibe of Dr. No, which happens a little bit. And so we move to Goldfinger.
Yeah.
And this is really the one that defines kind of at least that early Bond sound. It really kind of sets the tone for everything from that. Goldfinger is performed by Shirley Bassey, who would go on to record multiple Bond songs. She was the only person to record multiple. She did at least 3. I should know that. It's probably in my notes somewhere else. But it's composed by John Barry, so the same guy, with lyrics by Leslie Bricusse, I'm going to go with, and Anthony Newley. And this is if you can hear it in your head, listener at home, Goldfinger. It's all very brassy and very old showtimey stuff. But it's a great song, and it has these the horns
We're doing a lot of sound effects on this episode. I hope you guys appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry. That's what this one's all going to be about is the sound effects. But this really sets the formula. This really grand brass that's happening, the dangerous lyrics, the commanding female vocal. There are a lot more female vocals in Bond songs than there are male vocals in general. Though there's some male vocals for sure. But producer Harry Saltzman reportedly, when he heard Goldfinger for the first time, called it, and I quote, "the worst song I've ever heard."
What? The worst song he's ever heard?
It can be hard because we have decades of this being such an important song. When you're hearing something and it could be anything and you're deciding whether this is good enough, it's a little bit different sometimes. You're like, that's a lot. And it's such a departure, certainly from like, what's happening in From Russia with Love, which I glossed over.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's very big. It's like very ostentatious and over the top in every way.
It's huge.
In fact, I would argue that now that I think about it and kind of looking at it through that lens, I kind of get it now. I was shocked to hear that, but now I'm like, actually, it doesn't actually seem like a Bond song in some ways. It's almost too much. Bond is like kind of a reserved, cool guy. And this is not. This is like Goldfinger.
That's the thing with a lot of the Bond songs. Yeah, they're big. They're huge. They'd be way too big for any. It'd be like hilarious for that to be on any movie now.
Yes,
they're very, very operatic. So yeah, it could have gone any way, but they settled on this, and it worked. And it worked especially with how like hammy and over the top a lot of those early Bonds could be.
Yeah, Goldfinger is out there as a song and a movie. I like it, but it's pretty weird.
Yeah, odd job killing people with the hat. Yeah, there's some silly stuff. But Bassey's performance on it is, for what it is, it's incredible. She was like removing her corset as she was going in order to be able to breathe, to hit the notes at the end. Like she's projecting.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, belting that thing for sure. I'm sorry, I just had a flashback to 1998 when you mentioned Odd Job and everybody being so mad when you would pick Odd Job when you were in Goldeneye because nobody could shoot him. No Odd Jobs. Nobody be Odd Job.
Exactly. It was not fair. Sorry, I wanted to fact check something because I didn't have it in my notes, but I remembered it. So Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones were on the recording of Goldfinger.
Oh, they were. Whoa. Cool.
The studio musicians.
So this is pre Led Zeppelin. Of course it is. Yeah.
By a ways.
Yeah. Very cool.
Some crazy stuff all around. And this also like establishes the formula of like the song is going to be about the movie.
Yes. Yes.
A formula that would later be employed or taken to its limit really by Will Smith in the 1990s with his songs that just were the plot of the movie.
Yes. In
Here
Wild
come
Wild
the Men
West.
in Black.
Yeah.
Jim West, Desperado. Anyway, I don't want to get stuck here forever.
I forgot
so I'm going to move on to one of the best of these in terms of stories. So I love Thunderball. I like all the Caribbean Bonds a lot. Thunderball's really fun. But this one, a lot had to kind of happen to land at the Thunderball. Do you know the Thunderball song? Does it like pop into your head? It's Tom Jones
that one's not hitting me.
Okay. It's odd. It's not bad, but it's not like one of the best exactly. But so here's how we landed at the Tom Jones Thunderball. So the original song was Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, performed again by Shirley Bassey, who just had done the Goldfinger one. Dionne Warwick was involved in it later. It came from the nickname from the Japanese press that they had for James Bond, Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Is that where that came from? Because I remember there's a movie called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Exactly. Yes, that's much later referencing this.
Okay.
But so they made this song, which is good and exists and you can listen to it. But the producers later demanded that the film's title appear in the song. They wanted to continue with what kind of worked for Goldfinger. And I think they probably were like, I suspect they were like, we're trying to market a movie here, guys. Put the name of the movie in the song.
You're right. I can see that. And it works.
Yeah. So John Barry, again, with lyricist Don Black, composes a new theme called Thunderball, which is performed by Tom Jones. Tom Jones of What's New Pussycat fame.
Yes.
Whoa.
My favorite song. I've never said anything negative about that song ever. Anyway.
But along the way, there's a very cool song that gets composed and then later rejected by none other than Johnny Cash, who made a Western-styled song called Thunderball. That has a really cool vibe to it. It's a different song. It's very suave. I think it's very it's a little too Western for James Bond, but it does kind of nail like Bond's cool, laid back vibe.
I've got to hear this. I've never.
You can find it. It's on one of the bootleg releases from Johnny Cash.
I'm gonna check this out.
Interestingly, it was rejected by the the producers because they felt like it was out of step with Bond's suave aesthetic. But in a lot of ways, like I think that the Johnny Cash vibe, to your point, is more what James Bond is actually like. He's not a loud dude.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, like Johnny Cash is almost the James Bond of country music.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. A little bit strange, but definitely worth a listen and super fun. But also, there was another track that was composed around this time that I put here on Thunderball, though it's not known for sure what it would have been. So Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys in the mid 60s he was working on an instrumental, and it kind of conceived it as like a Bond inspired instrumental. He titled it Run James Run. And there's some thought, some of this isn't really known for sure, as to whether he had pitched it to the producers and they didn't want it or what. That's like not really super clear. But it didn't, one way or another, it did not end up as a James Bond song. However, that song did get re-recorded with a different orchestration and released as the titular song Pet Sounds on the album Pet Sounds.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh,
so that was
wow.
called Run James Run, and kind of made, and if you listen to it, it's Bondy, even though it doesn't sound like it in how it's orchestrated on Pet Sounds, but you can get it. There's some.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was weirdly just listening to Pet Sounds, which is not something I have in my regular rotation. So this is very relevant to me right now.
Yeah. And I don't know if the producers had it as an option, but I mean, it would have been pretty smart to put out a Beach Boys song in 1965 as the, lead single for your James Bond movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That would have been great marketing.
Especially for Thunderball. I mean, that would have worked.
Yes. 100%.
So moving from Thunderball, we get to my personal absolute favorite of all of them. Can you guess what my favorite James Bond song is? I guess you get a hint that it's chronological.
Well, I don't know the order of everything as it was released, so no, I can't.
Okay, well, I'll answer it for you.
Okay.
It's You Only Live Twice by Nancy Sinatra. It has these beautiful violins in it. Sorry.
I was just refamiliarizing when you told, we don't always talk about what we're going to do, but he gave me a hint about this and I was like, ooh, I definitely do need some refreshers. And that was the first one. Cause I think that's probably outside of the original James Bond theme. Skyfall is also my favorite James Bond song. And then Nancy Sinatra. So I guess I probably could have guessed it if I had put about 2% more brain power into it, because it's a really good song. And I think I like it's a little different than what I think most people would expect out of a James Bond song. It's big, but it's not as big. And
it's a big turn for Bond, actually. As it gets into the late 60s, you're getting more into this like romantic, but like anthemic sound, which is different from like those very brassy songs that came earlier. And this is a theme that we'll see. The Bond music does evolve to suit the time.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
And so, by the time you're in 1967, like you've got You're Not Too Far from the Summer of Love, and you're going to put Tom Jones out there. Not anymore.
Nah.
That ain't cool anymore. Not amongst the kids, at least, that you're trying to reach. So this was composed by John Barry, again, sang by Nancy Sinatra. Nancy Sinatra was reportedly very nervous. They said that she took more than 25 takes and that her final vocal was heavily cut up and pieced together from all of those different takes.
Oh, wow. That's kind of crazy. I mean, just the weight, because she'd been performing in the spotlight for a long time at that point. Was it just the weight of it being a Bond thing?
I don't know. I mean, sometimes people just get nervous.
That's true. It does just happen.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a strange thing. I'm just guessing at this point, but I imagine moving from your own music to doing something that's for a movie could be a strange change because now you're not in charge.
Right.
You're just doing work as like a hired hand in some ways.
Yeah, you're almost an instrument more than a performer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. But it also really suits this Bond film. And so I love You Only Live Twice. I really, really love that movie. I think it's really well paced. It's the one where you've got the volcano at the end that like Austin Powers is kind of riffing on. But it is also the one where they disguise, it must be said, they do disguise Sean Connery as a Japanese man in it.
Yes, they do.
With some prosthetics. And that is, I mean, it's problematic for sure. It's also just not very effective.
No, it's not.
It's very funny to see.
You can still tell that's Sean Connery.
It sure is. Yeah, it's just Sean Connery with some chubby cheeks.
Yes, didn't work super well.
Also responsible for one of my favorite lines in James Bond, where Sean Connery's sitting there, he's in like the spa, and the various like masseuse girls are laughing, and he's like, "What are they laughing about?" And she's like, "They're laughing. They've never seen a man with chest hair like yours before." And Sean Connery says, "Ancient Japanese proverbs say, bird never nest in bare tree."
Well, I regret to inform everybody that I am not Sean Connery, and I'm a bit of a bare tree over here.
See, I am. So I've used this from time to time.
Mm-hmm. And if I were you, I would also.
So anyway, that song is fantastic. It was later sampled for Robbie Williams' song Millennium, which I know because it was on Now. That's what I call music too, which I listen to a lot, but it was really big in the UK and less big in the US, but it's a great song.
Yeah, I discussed this on another podcast that I didn't even really know who Robbie Williams was. And he's enormous in the UK from what I gather.
He's one of those people. I only know that song, but he's huge in the UK and just never broke through to the same degree here at all.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's move on to the next
Robin
James
Williams,
Bond song.
we should note. Not Robin Williams. Robbie. Yes.
Different Williams. So we're gonna move ahead by a couple of years. So that was 67. We're gonna leapfrog 6 years into the future. And now it's the 70s. It's 1973. We can't quite go with that, it certainly can't do like Tom Jones brassy stuff very easily. But we're also not going to go with like the Nancy Sinatra strings thing either. We need a new Bond song to reach the people of the 1970s to fit this time. And who do they turn to but none other than the handsomest Beatle himself, Paul McCartney.
There you go.
To do the theme song for Live and Let Die. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is Paul and Linda McCartney. This is the Wings era of Paul McCartney. So Paul and Linda McCartney are credited with writing it. And then George Martin, who produced all the Beatles stuff and is a legend in his own right, arranged and produced, it. This song is crazy. And I'd watched a video where Paul McCartney's talking about it. And he was saying, like, when they asked him, he was like, what am I going to do? It's got to be big. I can't make small music. People are going to be in a theater hearing this song. Like, it needs to sound cinematic. This is where this term comes from. And so he rips out Live and Let Die, which is indeed cinematic for being such a popular. This is probably like the most successful popular song of all of the Bond songs. It is, I think. So not by so charts, but like everyone knows the song.
Yeah. Well, so I was going to say, so much so I didn't even know it was a James Bond song. Well, I had heard it probably 100 times before I realized that it was a James Bond song because I hadn't seen the movie. And I think I was like maybe 13 or 14 when I realized it was a James Bond song. And my wife, who's not really a Bond fan at all, it's not like she doesn't like them. She just doesn't follow the franchise at all. She was in her 30s when she was like, this song, she said to me in the car, this song sounds like a James Bond song. Huh? And I was like, well, haha, guess what? It is. So your ears are very good. It is a James Bond song indeed.
It's a legendary song. It's so much. I mean, so where to begin? I think a lot about the Hey Arnold episode about Dino Spumoni.
Okay, I'm not sure I can follow you on this one, but let's see if we can.
So, it's going to all tie together. So, Dino Spumoni in Hey Arnold is like kind of like a Frank Sinatra type guy. And he has this writing partner, and I forget his name. And he writes all of the lyrics in like a very Elton John sort of way. And they move into the boarding house because the Hey Arnold's grandparents run, because they're in a spat and they're breaking up. And basically the one guy who's the lyricist writes a song that's like really captivating lyrically, but the melody is just garbage. And Dino Spumoni writes a song that's like super catchy, but it's about like onions or something. Like it isn't about anything relevant. And it's one of those things where it's like you really see where two people fit together creatively. Mm-hmm. And it's always interesting when people that are like Lennon and McCartney, in this example, that write together eventually kind of split up, and you see what each person did on their own. And so anyway, because that's a whole episode, but Paul McCartney, when he's not leashed in by John Lennon at all, just starts writing songs that are 12 songs, just jammed together. Just every idea he had, just yam it in there and then do it. And you've got like Jet and Band on the Run and Live and Let Die that are like sincerely like a dozen songs that in some ways have little to do with each other.
Yes.
They're just jammed together.
That would be Lynn's number one criticism. She's like, this song sounds like it's going to be one of the best songs in the world. And then it changes into something completely different. And I always interpreted it as like kind of going from like an anthem that's sort of introducing you into the movie to like a chase scene. You know, that da 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 sounds like a chase scene to me. It always has, even before I realized that's what it was written for a movie. And that's her main criticism of the song, is she likes it but kind of doesn't. She's like, it's like the best song in the world and the worst song in the world at the same time, because it's two or so many different things to her.
That's about right. Yeah, it goes from the piano ballad intro that everyone kind of thinks of, and then it just explodes, and you get like strings and rock and all this stuff, and then you get that weird reggae interlude.
Yeah, that part's kind of strange. That part throws me off. Yeah.
There's an orchestral middle section that actually reprises the Bond chord, which Paul, being a genius, of course, is like, no, I've got to work that in somewhere. Which is super cool. It's a wild song all around, but it is also really good. And it becomes like, indeed, like a lasting part of the rock canon, totally separate from the movie.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people.
This is one case where like the song is better known than the movie.
I think it is. I honestly think there's probably a lot of people who didn't realize that it was for a Bond film at first. Yeah. But I can't let this little section of old Paul go by without mentioning something, because when you're talking about him being reined in by Lennon, I think there's no better example of him needing John Lennon than simply having a wonderful Christmas time. I think that is honestly, for such a tremendously talented individual who's given us so much good stuff, like genuinely good stuff, that is one of the worst songs I've ever heard.
My dude, I know this is supposed to be a clean podcast. I love that song.
No, you don't.
I love it so much. Yes,
no, you don't.
I love it.
No, you don't.
I understand completely why other people hate it. I love it. It's maybe my favorite Christmas song.
It's so bad. It's so terrible.
It's so good. Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Like, speaking of like not knowing things, I when I found out that was Paul McCartney, I about fell out of my chair. I was like, no, that's not Paul McCartney. That can't be Paul McCartney. What is it? What is it that you like about it?
What's that synth? Is it the CS80? I forget what.
I think so. Yeah, been used. It's like he discovered it for the first time, and just...
he did. Yeah. It just gives me. It gives me a lot of feels. I remember it playing when I was a kid, and it makes me feel like that. It's this lovely, like plasticky thing. It's great.
Well, I can't argue with nostalgia. That I will give you. And you know, there are definitely things that maybe other people, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm sure it exists where I like purely for nostalgic purposes. And that, you know, I don't know. Yeah. I have the opposite, because when I was a kid, I would hear this and be like, why does he keep saying the same thing over and over again? What is going on? We're not having a wonderful Christmas time. Stop it.
It doesn't feel like Christmas until Hans Gruber falls off Nakatomi Tower Plaza, and I hear Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time. If you want a rough listen on a Paul McCartney song, when have you last listened to Temporary Secretary?
I don't know that I have, actually.
Temporary Secretary. Anyway, God, I'm doing so many impersonations on this episode. Check that one out. That's your homework. Anyway, last notes on this. The producers had initially assumed that Paul McCartney would write it and then somebody else would sing it. But McCartney wanted Wings to perform it. And I can't even imagine what it would sound like if it was somebody else. I think they probably would have, if it wasn't Paul like behind the desk, I imagine they would have made it feel more cohesive. And not like 10 different bands playing a song all at once. Anyway, who knows?
It might also felt a lot smaller and the pacing would have been off, and who knows? I think it works.
Anyway, it was a huge hit and the first rock band song to earn an Oscar nomination. So let's move on to The Man with the Golden Gun. So this is into, I'm a big Connery Bond fan, and so I'm not as much of a fan of like the Dalton, Roger Moore, Lazenby stuff. But we're talking about it anyway. So the interesting thing about this, the actual song, The Man with the Golden Gun, was performed by Lulu, and John Barry called it his least favorite Bond song of all time. He said he hated it.
Okay.
So it kind of like brings back the like orchestral elegance of the early 60s, but in like a 70s glam rocky sort of way is what they're kind of trying to do. It doesn't quite work. But the interesting thing about this, the reason it's on our list, is that Alice Cooper submitted his own version, but it was allegedly a day late and didn't get considered. So they went with the Lulu one, but Alice Cooper's The Man with the Golden Gun song, it's just called, he dropped it's just called Man with the Golden Gun, is on his album Muscle of Love.
Okay. Well, that's some homework I'm going to get into. I want to hear that. I definitely want to hear that. Yeah.
It would have been, I mean, the Lulu one, I don't think it's as bad as John Barry does, but it would have been cooler if it was Alice Cooper.
It's a little forgettable, I think, especially by comparison to the other ones. Yeah. Because when you said that, I was like, which one is that? Oh, yeah. It took me a minute to even remember which song that was because it didn't stick in my head as much.
Yep. So that's an interesting one just for what could have been. We've got a few more what could have beens that'll come up over time. But let's skip ahead now to 1977. So this is The Spy Who Loved Me. And this is an interesting one. They turn to Carly Simon to write this one. And she writes a song, Nobody Does It Better. Do you know this one?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. I actually don't like this song very much, but that's just me. It is a good song. It's this like romantic ballad about Bond himself. It's also of note that the title isn't just the title of the movie for the first time in a while, basically since Dr. No.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Dr. No would just be a weird name for a song. I understand that what they're trying to do. It'd just be kind of weird. And The Spy Who Loved Me, also a little bit weird for a song name. So I get why they changed it. I don't know. I think I might like this song a little bit better than you. I'm
just not a big Carly Simon fan.
Well, I can't say that she's on my regular rotation, but I don't know. Well, again, re-listening to some of these, I think I accidentally somehow, maybe we're on a mind meld. Like I just opened up Bond music. I was like, I'm not going to listen to all 27 of these. So I just randomly clicked through the ones I thought I needed to remember for this. And this was one of them. And I was like, oh yeah, I kind of, it's not my favorite, but the departure is kind of nice. And I think it's just like a different perspective and makes sense in the context of the movie. So I like this one a little bit more than you, but it's far from my favorite.
It's a callback, in some ways to the Nancy Sinatra one, I think a little bit. It's got the Bond chord in it also. I think a lot of like people that get tasked to do a Bond song are like, can I work that chord in?
Yeah.
I've got to be able to fit it in there somewhere.
Yes.
So it does here, but in a way that like still it's not too weird for like how pop friendly the overall melody is. Like it's not too striking. And this one got radio play and was really well liked. And just like an interesting kind of departure in a few ways, both in terms of the title and it being about James Bond himself.
Right. Rather than about the movie.
Yeah, about the movie, or like Goldfinger's from the villain's perspective. They can all be a little bit different. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit. This one's mostly interesting for a what could have been. So For Your Eyes Only, 1981. So firmly, this is Roger Moore era, right? This one's interesting because the producers approached the band Blondie, who was awesome, to record this song. They had a song in hand, and they were like, "Oh, I think this would be awesome if Debbie Harry and Blondie performed this one." And Debbie Harry and Chris Stein of Blondie were interested, but they wanted to use their own composition. They were like, "Let us write you a song for this. It'll be awesome." And the studio was like, "No,
we already paid for this one."
Yeah, but apparently their version was later appeared on The Hunter, which I have in my notes, which I forgot that I wrote down. But they tapped Sheena Easton instead to perform the official song, and interestingly, she appears singing it in the film's opening titles, which is kind of rare. I think that's the only time in a Bond that the singer's there in the opening title sequence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this one's like kind of like an early 80s pop slickness thing. Not a bad one. It's just interesting for like, I want to hear I wish it was Blondie. That'd be way cooler.
I do. I think we all want to hear what that could have been. Blondie's such an interesting story and probably deserves its own episode. I just love where they came from and then the cultural phenomenon that they kind of became. Because they were just a punk band.
Yep.
Playing CBGBs and just in the grime and the guts of it and somehow transcended
we call it
way
new
beyond
wave in this era, but yes.
Yes. Well, yes. But I mean, they started out like pretty gnarly.
Oh yeah.
And so I love how like
the B-52s also like that early CBGB's B-52 stuff is great.
Yeah. I just love how far they were able to take it. Of course, helps if you have Debbie Harry fronting your band.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a powerhouse. Absolutely. So let's move on into the mid 80s. We're going to actually move to the most popular Bond song in terms of chart success ever.
Oh, really? I would have assumed that firmly belonged to Paul McCartney, but all right, here we go.
Yeah. So this is 1985's A View to a Kill. So by 1985, we're in the MTV era with, all of that you kind of picture with the MTV era. And John Taylor, the bassist for Duran Duran, approaches producer Cubby Broccoli, which is the guy the Broccoli that I mentioned earlier. I forgot his first name was Cubby. Don't know why his name is Cubby Broccoli, but it is.
I'm fine with it.
So he's kind of drunk somewhere and he approaches Cubby Broccoli where they're in the same place. And he said, "When are you guys going to get somebody decent to do one of your theme songs?" And so Mr. Broccoli says, "You're it." And they tag Duran Duran, who's huge at the time, to make this song. And they collaborate with John Barry. And John Barry's always around and like collaborating pretty heavily with a lot of these artists. The only one that I don't sense that he was as involved with was Paul McCartney's Live and Let Die. I'm sure he was there, but like you get the sense Paul McCartney does what Paul McCartney wants.
Right. You're not going to steer that ship unless your name is John Lennon.
Exactly. And even then, not for forever because they split up. But they put together this song. It's everything that you're thinking of a Duran Duran song, new wave synths. They've got a little bit some classic orchestration from John Barry, and it becomes the only Bond song to hit #1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100.
Wow, that's crazy. I wouldn't have guessed that. Also, just gonna say it, and I'm sure that this is something else we differ on. I'm not a very big fan of Duran Duran.
That's fair.
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I like Duran Duran, like Rio and all that, but I'm not sitting around listening to it. So if I owned a yacht, I would listen to much more Duran Duran.
I think I would listen to the exact same amount, no matter what boat I was on. Yeah.
That's fair. I would be Michael McDonald and Duran Duran would appear much more highly in my my Spotify Wrapped.
There is a time and place, I'll admit it, but yeah, usually that's when I'm not around.
But we'll kind of keep going, but it's interesting to trace how like the songs through here are going from like early 60s orchestral jazz into, some slightly folkier stuff with Nancy Sinatra, into Paul McCartney, and into finally Duran Duran by the 80s. It's really, really kind of riding this wave of what's happening in music at the time, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure it's one of those things. I didn't really think about it until just now, but I remember when some of the newer artists were getting tapped. I remember when Billie Eilish did her song, which I really like, actually. There are a lot of people like, oh, come on. Why is she doing the Bond song? And it's like, what are you talking about? They've always tapped whoever was popular at the time. That's what they do.
It should be Lee Greenwood.
Why couldn't we get Kid Rock on this track?
That's right. So, as I mentioned before, I'm not a huge fan of like the Roger Moore era, and they're fun here and there, but they're not. They get a little hokey.
Yeah, well,
they don't feel like they're capitalizing on it, and a lot of the stuff with Bond in Bond history seems to be this constant desire to reinvent while going back to the real thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And so the first time this happens, or not the first, but like the first kind of notable time in you and I's lifetime is in 1995 when they get an all new Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Moore's gone, and they bring in a handsome fellow named Pierce Brosnan.
I do like myself some Pierce Brosnan. I do.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think he's the most Ian Fleming Bond of the Bonds.
It feels that way to me too. Yep.
I feel like Sean McCartney was what I was about to say. Sean Connery is like the ultimate Bond to me, but he's not like what the Ian Fleming Bond is. The Ian Fleming Bond is very suave.
Yes.
Like Pierce Brosnan. He's that. Like it's perfectly that, I think.
I know he's not, but Sean Connery feels like a more American Bond. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. Well, I mean, when they brought him in, the big complaint from people about him being like the potential casting was that he looked like a muscly brute.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they told him, back in that day and age, that dude, may as well have been The Rock.
That's fair.
Nobody had seen abs yet. They hadn't been invented. And no one had like a chest. No one knew how to bench press.
Right.
We see like handsome guys with their shirts off back in old movies. There's no pecs at all. They didn't even know how to target those.
Yeah.
So they told him to like take the suit home and sleep in it because they're like, he looks like a football player wearing a suit. He doesn't look comfortable in it at all.
Huh. I did not realize that. But in context, I can see why they felt that way.
Yeah. But they go with Pierce Brosnan, and in many ways, they're trying to kind of bring Bond back from the schmaltzy bit that had gotten into back to the prestige Bond of the 1960s. And they make Goldeneye to do that, and they need a song to go along with it. So they turn to Bono and the Edge of U2 to write a song for it, but not to perform it, interestingly. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if they just didn't want him to or what, but they asked them to write it. And Bono and the Edge do like it's a fairly conscious revival of like the John Barry Bassey sort of sound from like the 60s, like everything else about Goldeneye. It feels like they're trying to revive things, and they turn to Tina Turner to sing it.
Mm-hmm.
So Tina initially, when she hears this song, is like, no.
Oh,
she allegedly heard.
You mean just like what Captain Beefheart told Bono?
Exactly. Don't go into that. We're saving that one.
Okay.
But she hears the scratch track. Bono sings on it because why not?
Sure.
He wrote it, and she listened to it. Was like, nuh-uh. That doesn't sound like me at all. But allegedly, once she hears like the arrangement, she's like, this is ready for Tina.
I got you. Okay. She needed to hear it fleshed out.
Yeah, exactly. And she cuts it. And this is like, it's kind of perfect. It feels like a modern, there's like some cool bass underneath it and stuff. But it feels like a modern take on the original, Barry Bassey thing from the 60s.
Yeah. And Tina's performance on this one is really cool. I mean, Tina's performance is always really cool. Let's be real. So,
yeah. She's Tina Turner.
She smokes it. Yeah, she's
come on, man. Mm-hmm. But I've got an interesting story with this one. So originally, Swedish pop group Ace of Base, who I feel like is not like they don't get the flowers they deserve in this day and age. I feel like Ace of Base, for how big they were in the 90s, you just don't hear about them much anymore.
They were enormous. They were one of those bands that I was introduced to at the same time as Third Eye Blind, and I decided I liked Third Eye Blind better.
Interesting. That's interesting. I had
Yeah.
an older sister, so Ace of Base was around.
Yeah,
it was
I'm
around
sure.
in my household a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
But they were tapped to record the theme, and they made a song.
Oh, they did.
Yep, also titled Goldeneye, but it was shelved when the film was delayed, and then and kind of fell off, and they went with the Bono Tina Turner version. But Ace of Base reworked their song Goldeneye into their 2002 song The Juvenile.
Okay. This seems to be a theme too, where bands will work on something or groups will work on something, and then it doesn't happen, and they're like, "Well, I guess we might as well use it. We've already put in the work. Yeah, why not?"
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was kind of perfect for that era. And you know, it's weird how short the Brosnan era was.
It seems like it had so much cultural impact, but I think for us, with our age very specifically, a lot of that has to do with the video games.
I think, yeah, I very much agree. Like the GoldenEye video game itself was probably as instrumental in the movie as like making us all think of James Bond as this incredible, like legendary piece of IP.
Well, and yeah, and all of the Sonics that are in the game are banging too. Like it's kind of funny, and we go back with like nostalgic lenses on their blocky, the graphics could never get better than this type of vibe. But if you listen to the sounds and like the haptics and the things that they have in that game, it's brilliant. It's perfect.
Yep. Yeah, I can hear them in my head just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's great. Slappers only, baby.
So the Brosnan era goes on for actually not really all that long. And then we get into the mid 2000s where there's also this sense, weirdly, yet again, to go back to the original Bonds, even though in some ways that's what the Brosnan era was as well. But they do it in a different way with Daniel Craig. And that feels like in some ways them going back to, Sean Connery style Bond in some ways.
In some ways, I think I think what Daniel Craig did, and this is surprising to me because I tend to be a fan of older things in a lot of ways. But Daniel Craig is actually my favorite Bond overall. He's who I picture when I think of James Bond, because he's got like the physical prowess that I would expect when you read about all the things that James Bond does. It's hard. I'm sorry, Roger. I'm really sorry. It's hard to imagine you being able to pull these things off. Okay. But Daniel Craig, it's like, well, yeah, of course he can.
Yeah, Roger Moore feels like a Bond in the way like Larry Bird feels like the best basketball player of like the 70s and 80s. It's just kind of that era. Like he would smoke everybody, but literally at halftime, Larry Bird would be smoking cigarettes in the alley and then get back on and kick everyone's butt. It just feels like the 70s and 80s, man. What a time.
Yes. Yep. It was a time to be alive. But no, Daniel Craig to me just feels like that's James Bond. He's tough. He's smart, but he's got some problems. I think Daniel Craig is the first one to like show like, maybe I'm an alcoholic. Maybe this isn't all just fantastic. Yeah. And that's what I like about him.
I'm going to keep making these comparisons because they're fun, but like, Roger Moore is like sexy James Bond in a universe in which Huey Lewis is a sex symbol.
Yes. Oh, wait. That's not this one?
It is this one. It was this one in the 80s.
Okay, good.
It's a different time.
Yes.
Very different time. But I'm with you. I love Daniel Craig Bond too. It also, that stuff really brought about like the pacing that our brain rotted generation of people that have been on the internet for so long are like, oh, okay, I can keep up with this.
Yeah, that's true. There's not a lot of dragging going on. It's stuff's happening. We're moving.
It is. And so they turn to none other than Chris Cornell, may he rest in peace, for the theme song of the first Daniel Craig Bond, Casino Royale, which is interestingly the first Bond in terms of the books. Anyway, it's in a lot of ways, they're returning to the original sense of Bond. And this is an interesting one. Again, you have one that doesn't have the title of the movie as its title, which is kind of rare in Bond world. It's not unheard of, but it's pretty rare. And it's this like very muscular guitar driven anthem.
It is.
It I think in many ways it like supports the newly hardened Bond that Daniel Craig is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love this song. I love Chris Cornell. It's weird to me to think about how that might have felt for him, because going back, he's a grunge band in Seattle, you know, barely scraping by. Then they get huge. But then I wonder if they tapped him on the shoulder for a Bond movie. If he was like, wait, what? Who?
Huh? Yeah.
Me? Like, okay. I don't know.
You want me to sound like Shirley Bassey?
Yeah, but I get that vibe. I could see Chris Cornell being slightly surprised that he's being asked to do this. But of course, he's got the pipes.
What pipes he had. Mm-hmm. My word. Yeah, I mean, he has every bit of the operatic pipes of like somebody like Shirley Bassey, just applied in a different way.
Yep. Different vibe, but all the same skill.
Mm-hmm. So moving ahead from there, we get to Quantum of Solace, which poor Quantum of Solace as a film. That was the one that was affected by the writer's strike.
Mm-hmm. And boy, was it affected.
Boy, was it.
It's not horrible. It's better than probably our memory gives it credit for, but it's not my favorite. It's not good. It's not very good, unfortunately, especially by comparison, which I'm sure we're going to get to.
Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm. So this one's interesting. Like the song itself, it's Jack White and Alicia Keys, Another Way to Die. I think that one's all fine. The Jack White part's cool. I'm not a big Alicia Keys fan, but whatever.
I quite like that song, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I like both of those people, though. So there's that.
The interesting bit about this to me is that at the same time, and this is all like James Bond, like super fan forum stuff, mind you. But Shirley Bassey records one final song called No Good About Goodbye. And she records it with composer David Arnold right during the period in which Quantum of Solace was being produced. And it's like very obviously like a Shirley Bassey Bond song. It has the strings and the dramatic pauses and the Bond chords in there. Like it's every bit of that. Many fans suspect that this song, which comes out afterwards, was originally intended for the song. Like lyrically, it feels like it's like talking about Quantum of Solace. And it's also kind of a farewell from Bassey herself too. Mm-hmm. So some fans suspect that this was intended to be the song, and then the producers decided to not do that and then go with the Jack White and Alicia Keys thing. I don't know as much about this as people that are on a James Bond forum, but I doubt it. I think that she made it, as a fan fiction sort of thing, but they were obviously like going to more modern artists and had been for some time. So it surprised me.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like, as much as it would have been maybe respectful to do so, that wasn't the trend they were on. They weren't going backwards in that way. It was always people who were pretty relevant at the time.
It is really good. But moving from that, we now land at Blake's favorite James Bond. And I think, boy, is it good. 2012's Skyfall.
Oh, man. I love this movie so much. And Javier Bardem, get out of town,
Oh, my God.
Jeez.
So good.
That man can play any villain ever, but like he's so good in this, and the back and forth with him and Daniel Craig is so good, and all the nostalgia points they pull out when they bust the Jaguar out. I get goosebumps every single time, and I'm just like, oh, this movie. I think personally, it's my favorite Bond movie, but it's also, I think, just a great movie as a standalone. If someone's not a Bond fanatic and you just want to kind of introduce them to the universe, this is a great entry point because it's just a good movie, no matter how you slice it. It's very entertaining, well acted. The story is great. You got to have a little bit of Bond knowledge for it to have the full impact, but you don't have to.
Yeah, I think I would imagine writing something like a Bond is always walking that line of, that people that are huge Bond fans are going to watch it, but that a lot of people are just going to go to the theater because it's a blockbuster that you have to see. Yeah. And not going to know all that stuff about it. And people are going to be dragging their significant others that are not going to know the first thing about the Connery Bonds or whatever. So this one does such a great job with it. It's a fantastic movie. I completely agree. But on the musical side, you've got Adele with producer Paul Epworth reviving the grand Bond ballad from the 60s.
Yeah.
And that's so cool because there's so much about this that's very much intended to be like pulling back from the 1960s while also positioning Bond for the future. But the music does a perfect job of that. Adele was just like born for this. Like, it's kind of like what Tina Turner does on Goldeneye. but almost 20 years later. It's fantastic. It's the first Bond theme song to win an Academy Award.
Deserves it.
Yeah,
I love
Live and
this
Let
song.
Die was nominated, but they were like, nah. Could be better. Crazy.
Yeah. Adele knocks it out of the park. The arrangement on this is arguably perfect for what it's doing. I mean, according to, again, just because I was talking about this with my good lady wife before we were recording, she's like, there's no other Bond song to even talk about. This is the best one.
Really?
Yeah. She's even further out of it than I am, but I'm like, well, I can't disagree. This is also my favorite one. So yeah, favorite movie and favorite song. And I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. The two are not related. If like this song sucked to me, and the movie was still awesome, I'd still say it was my favorite Bond movie. But the fact is, like, we got a 1-2 punch, and I think that this being in the intro, and the intro for this movie is also really good when the music's playing. It all just fit. They just knocked it out of the park. They just really crushed it.
Callback, but you said Jaguar earlier. Did you mean Aston Martin?
Oh, I did mean our Aston Martin. Sorry,
dear listener, don't worry. You don't have to comment about it. I have successfully hated on Blake within the episode itself. There's no need to gotcha him later.
Yes, don't email me. I said Jaguar. I meant Aston Martin. I actually took a picture of a very similar Aston Martin that I saw at a car museum recently, and it gave me a similar feeling. And I went, wow, I'll never own one of those, but what a beautiful automobile. Whew.
Like all British automobiles, gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Great to look at.
Yep, excellent to look at. They don't like to start.
Yeah.
Unlikely that it's going to start for you, but beautiful car.
Beautiful cars.
This happens. Skyfall is just a huge success in every way. And so they have to follow it up about 3 years later. And I think in some ways they get kind of addicted to having that Academy Award bit. Like the music really helped this one. And I think they're like, we need that again. We've got to go to it. So they turn to no other than British rockers Radiohead. Rock's not even really the right. I sound like some old dude. Radiohead's not like rockers exactly. Anyway, they turn to Radiohead to follow up Adele's incredible job with Spectre. And Radiohead,
you say? Do you know anybody else who has anything to do with that?
Us
band?
here at Stringjoy, who are now providing the strings for Radiohead's Ed O'Brien.
Pluggity plug. Look at us go. Yeah.
Anyway, Radiohead's tapped, and Radiohead does not do commercial stuff very often.
No.
So it kind of surprises me they played ball at all. Like they would be kind of one of the bands that I think would be like, no. But they didn't. And
I like the accent.
No. They offer them their unreleased song "Man of War," which has been around since like the 90s, and like a lot of Radiohead fans have like had shared recordings that they had from live takes and stuff, but it had never been released. So this is a pretty big offering, but this would have disqualified them from winning an Academy Award for the song because it wasn't written for the film itself.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense.
So the producers
it's not best
are like,
original song. It would be because it's anyway.
Even though it hadn't been released, which I thought I didn't know that, but like it had to have been written for the song itself. So that one's not going to work. And that's a really good song, by the way. So instead, they created a new orchestral track. They started from a blank slate and made a song called Spectre for the movie Spectre, of course. But the producers felt once they heard it that it was too melancholy. Which, it's
Radiohead.
As a Radiohead fan, like that's how that goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially in this era of Radiohead. By the time of the 2010s and 2020s,
cheer up, would you?
Yeah, exactly. So the producers are like, "Well, screw you guys. That's not going to work." And they instead turn to Sam Smith and just don't go back to Radiohead at all. And he replaced it with "Writings on the Wall." The Sam Smith song, which went on to win a second consecutive Bond Oscar for the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. That guy has pipes too, but for some reason, this one doesn't grab me in the same way.
It didn't grab me in the same way, but that's true of the whole movie.
That's true. No, that's 100% true. I didn't hate the movie, and I didn't hate the song. but it doesn't. You saw how excited I got to talk about Skyfall. I don't feel the same way about this one.
It's a hard thing to follow up for sure. Yeah, not a bad song. In some ways, I feel like it kind of, after Skyfall, they're just like, okay, so we're saving this Oscar for you now.
Right.
When you have it. But Radiohead did later release Spectre, which they had made for the movie online, which it's considered one of the great lost Bond songs ever written, alongside some of the ones that I mentioned before.
Oh, yeah. I've heard this song before. Yeah. I kind of had forgotten about it till you mentioned it, but it's a good one.
I had heard it and I didn't think of it as like that Spectre.
Like
I didn't know that it was for the movie.
I looked this up at one point, maybe 3 years ago or something. And so some of this is familiar to me.
And so that brings us to the most recent Bond, the last one in what we will be talking about today, 2021's No Time to Die. Which I was thinking, I'm like, man, it's been a little while.
Yeah, I feel like we're well overdue for a new Bond film, but
that was not going to be Daniel Craig. That was his last one.
Yep, which I think they did a great job of wrapping up his era.
And they did too. No Time to Die is really good.
Yep. It's not going to be the crown jewel. That's going to be Skyfall, but I think overall it's really good. And I like the song as well.
Yeah, I agree. So they turned to Billie Eilish, who at 18 is the youngest artist to write and record a Bond theme. Together with her brother Phineas, who's like her writing partner for everything. She writes this song. It's orchestrated by Hans Zimmer, and Johnny Marr is on guitar. So
how do you go wrong?
How do you go wrong with all those folks involved? It's a pretty minimalist song, which is like typical of Billie Eilish, especially in this era. That was her thing. There's like this great orchestral swell, but it's minimalist in a lot of ways too. I found it slightly minimalist for a Bond song for me.
It is a little bit. It's definitely not super anthemic, but I think it like the more like somber nature of it lends to this kind of, goodbye love letter that this movie is. I think it works.
I agree. It's a great song, and it goes on to win the third Oscar, I believe.
Oh, I didn't realize that one won. Cool.
I might be wrong. Hold on. I think I'm just like shooting from the hip here because I was sure that it won, but then I see that that's not in my notes.
Oh,
I'm going to find out.
Let's find out live on the air. Now, guys, if that's not true, don't yell at Scott, just like you're not going to yell at me about the Jaguar.
It won
Aston
Best
Martin
Sound
thing.
and Best Visual Effect, but it did not win Best Song. Excuse me. I'm glad we caught it in real time.
So it won what? It won Best Visual Effect,
Best Sound and Best Visual Effects.
Best Sound.
The movie did, yeah.
Got it.
So too bad they lost that one.
Oh man, couldn't even pull it off with a Hans Zimmer.
They brought in the Zimmer.
I love Hans Zimmer.
They pulled out all the stops. I know you do.
He really makes me happy. Him and Chris Nolan together. It's a match made in heaven.
Hey, fair enough. But yes, this has been my telling of a lot of the sort of important songs amongst the 27 different Bond songs that are out there. There are a number of others that didn't get covered here. Like I said, I didn't want to go through all 27, or it'd be 4 hours of Scott talks about every single James Bond song. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. It's interesting to see how it like rides through the years. I think in a lot of ways it mimics the movies. By the 80s, you have like Duran Duran, and you're like, okay, they're really like doing trying to be modern and topical, which is also kind of what was happening in the movies at the same time. And then by the time you get to the 90s, they're like, oh, okay, maybe that was a mistake. We're going to pull back into this classic sort of orchestral thing with a modern twist. And then it gets a little edgy and then goes back to that again.
Well, if you think about it, it's a little bit like when the Bond franchise has been around for so long. It's a little bit like a car manufacturer. So in the 50s and 60s and 70s, they're doing all these things and trying to stay relevant with the time and creating this new thing. And by the time the 90s rolls around, they're like, and I realize that this is not a perfect analogy because this didn't happen until the 2000s, but it's like when they had the Camaro in the 2000s and they were like, wait, what if we made it look like the old one? What if we made it look like the one from 69 that was really cool? But when they made it in 69, they weren't trying to make a classic. They were trying to make something that was cool for the time.
Yep.
And so Bond's been around for that long. Now the old ones are viewed as classics. So you actually have some nostalgia and reference points when at the time they were just trying to make new stuff.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. And into the 80s. I mean, Roger Moore, like, I think we're going to probably see some people that really have a soft spot for the Roger Moore stuff and the vibe of that at the time. Maybe not quite as much as Sean Connery, but I'm sure there are some people who Roger is their favorite Bond. And you know what? More power to him.
Yeah, if you're out there beating that drum, good on you. I bless you. I would like to watch your favorite Roger Moore stuff with you. It's good for what it is. It just doesn't feel quite the same.
Roger's got a couple watches that I've been looking at. I'm like, you know what? I kind of like that. It's a little 80s, but I kind of like it, you know? And they're more attainable than some of the other ones too. That helps.
For sure. Yeah. As a person with an 80s watch and an 80s car, they're more attainable than things from the 60s.
Yeah.
And not that they're like not old enough to be in like bad shape. You have better odds of things being in pretty good shape.
Yes. Yes. Well, do we have anything else we need to leave the listeners with? I think we pretty much went over it.
No, that's what I got in terms of James Bond music. I'm curious. There's probably some people that really have an affection for one of the songs that I didn't pick to talk about in my telling of it. If that is the case, Blake, I hope that you could tell them to let us know about that in the comments somewhere on their favorite podcast listening platform.
I would love it if they would do that on YouTube or Spotify or anywhere else that has comments enabled. We're certainly not turning them off. So please dive in there and let us know what you think. I'd love to know your favorite Bond song and why. And I'll go listen to it. I will, because I haven't listened to them all. Like I said, I didn't go back and listen to all 27 Bond songs. I've probably heard them all at one point or another, but that doesn't mean I've sat down and given them a real critical listen. And so if you would drop us those comments, if you would share this with a friend, share this with a Bond enthusiast, really drop this in the James Bond forums and let's watch them all get frothy and worked up. And these guys don't know what they're talking about.
We don't. Compared to the people on the Bond forums. Yes,
that's right.
Send us to your dad, who is a big fan of old Bond movies. Please.
Yes. Or your grandpa at this point. Who knows? Could be any of these people. Send it to whoever you think might enjoy it. Give us a 5-star on whatever platform, and we'll talk to you on the internet very soon.